So today we're going to talk about Omen and the change to Omen that is coming in the game. Omen's dark cover ability will now fall to the height of nearby ground if placed inside a wall. And a lot of people saw this in the patch notes and they freaked out and went, oh my god, they just killed Omen. They just stopped Omen from doing one-ways. Omen is dead. That is not true, because you can still do a lot of one-ways as we're about to discover. And so what we're going to do today is take a look at the 4 maps where Omen is meta, or, will have a pretty decent pick rate, or does right now. And that is Ascent, Haven, Fracture, and then I'm also going to do Split as well, because Omen was pretty meta on Split last time. And we're going to try and answer the question, what one-ways can you do or not do that are quite common? I know a lot of you Omen mains will be able to do a ton of different ones that I'm not going to show in this video, but just kind of the main core one-ways on those maps, which ones are still possible, which ones are not. So first things first, what actually is the change? Well, many of you will know that in the old version of the game, or the current version of the game, you can do a one-way here, right? And this is basically the change. Anywhere where there is a red arrow, the smoke will now not be a one-way and will fall instead, okay? So if I try and put a smoke there, on the old version of the game, that would stay there and be a one-way. Instead, now it's going to fall down. So that is the basics of the change. Anywhere you see a red arrow and there isn't like a clear ledge that you can put a smoke onto, it will just fall to the ground. You won't have a one-way there. Starting out with the ledge here on A main, this is a very common one-way that you will see, and this one, of course, you can still do. Anything that you can obviously do with Brim and Astra, you can definitely do, and so this is still absolutely fine. You'll still be doing this one-way a lot. Coming towards the A site, you used to be able to put this smoke really anywhere on this wall. Now you can only really put it there, and this is a little bit high, as you can see. Someone coming around here, crouching down there, can still see, a lot of what is going on. But you could still do that and then maybe come and play on top of Gen, right? You can't quite see the top of Gen from even crouching down there. So you could still get a one-way like that, but obviously it is a lot more clunky. There is only one position to do it from. Moving on to more of a post-plant scenario, you can still do it, and this is true on both sides of the map, on top of these doors, so that's still very possible. You still get a green arrow there. They will stay there. Nice little one-way for the post-plant as well. Now, this one towards Heaven got a lot more tricky for a post plant. Doing it towards this one is just a little bit too high, but if you come down, you can see there's just little areas like that where you can do it. And so you have to be a bit more precise, but you can still get a one-way on there, right? You can still do it. There's even slightly better ones than this that are just a tiny bit down as well. So you can still do it. You just have to be a bit more precise, but it's still there. Obviously, this one on short is kind of the big loss, right? There is just nothing there you can do. There is no one-way here on short, and that is a pretty big deal because this was a very common one to use. Moving on over to the B site, as I mentioned before, you can still do it on top of that door. And here in B main, again, you can do it, but again, you just have to be a bit more precise. You can do it on that ledge just there and still get a one-way, but you just have to be a bit more precise. You can't just put it anywhere in the wall. You just have to find it on the ledge just there. And then finally, coming for a post plant to B, you can still put it on top of this roof, just anywhere there, as you can see. And this is a nice one for playing the post plant and, just playing from back here in Boathouse and getting some nice kills there. So that is basically all of the changes on Ascent, and so you can see there's only really one place where we simply cannot do it, where a common Omen one-way is used. And so on Ascent, I would still say Omen is mostly going to be fine. Might be a bit harder to use overall, but you'll still be able to do mostly what you were doing before. But let's come to Fracture, and by far the most important one-way here on Fracture is here in A main. And initially I thought, oh, well, look, you just can't do it anymore, but there is a tiny, tiny little gap here. There is a tiny little space where you can do it. Just there, just on the lip of this wall, right? It's not a perfect one-way. It's not easy to do. You're going to have to be very precise. It will be hard to do, like mid-round or whatnot. But it is just about there. So you potentially could get very used to just doing it there and holding this angle. This is kind of the most important one by far on Fracture. And it is just about possible, but not very easy to do. And the same is true here in A main as well, where again, you can see you can just about do it on the lip of this wall, kind of similar to the one in A main. Not very easy, particularly from this side of the wall where you can't really see it. Again, possible, but not very easy. And considering overall this was already, mostly a Brim map, and really a lot of the Omen strength was in the ability to be able to defend A main here, right? FPX kind of came up with this idea. They'd one-way this corner, right? And then have Angel on Omen just sit here anytime you hear any danger from his partner. Great little Omen flash through there as well. That, I think, is going to be much more tricky to do. Let's come now to Haven, and here on Haven you can see this one in A-Main, you can see again it just is possible, but again very, very difficult, and this honestly might be a little bit too high as well overall. Maybe if you're playing in Heaven, you can make this one-way work, but again, not very easy to do, and again, you have to be playing in a very specific angle. This post-plant one though, as you can see, is pretty easy to just put on there. That one's not difficult to find at all, and you'll still have a nice one-way for the post-plant. Here in Garage, you probably can put one just up there, as you can see, and this probably will be good enough to do the job, particularly if you're playing from this higher angle up here. This should be fine. So this one, not too hard either. This one here for the post plant on C on the corner of the wall, you can still see it is possible. Again, though, this one is hard to place. It's not perfect again, you know, and it is going to probably take a bit more time than it would before. You can't just stick in the wall, but you can see if you can find that ledge, you know, it's not too bad. You have a one-way just there. And so overall on Haven, you know, Omen is a very, very common pick on this map. And honestly, the one-ways, you know, weren't ever, I think, the main part of why Omen was picked here on Haven, and most of them are pretty unchanged anyway. So now let's come to Split, and as you can see, I've managed to get a one-way here in B main, which is kind of the most important area. Now, there is something to this, that when I tried this before, it gave me a green arrow, but then didn't let me play, like it fell. I think it might be there, where it tells me that it's fine, but yeah, it falls. I don't know if that's just like, you know, a bit of a coding thing where the code is wrong. Keep that in mind for when you're playing Split. It is possible, but you have to be at a very precise place to get this right, and so that might impact Omen overall on this map, because this is a very important one-way. Okay, now let's move on to Split, and this one I honestly don't know what is going on. I have managed to get this work like 1 out of 5 times. You see it gives me a green arrow just there, but if I press it, and I honestly don't know will this work or not. Okay, that one worked. So, but there is a very precise place. I'll just show you what I mean whilst this one is going on. That again, if we find like a green arrow on this little part here and place it, this one falls, even though it was on a green arrow. So I honestly don't know what exactly is going on with this. I guess there's a very precise point where it does work, and there's, you know, a lot of points in there where it gives you a green arrow, but it doesn't quite work, and I honestly don't really know why. So you see it gave me a green arrow there, it falls. This is quite big. The fact you can do it is good, but if it's very, very precise, that is going to be a big hit to Omen, because this was a very common place for a one-way. This one in Heaven here, you do have to be a bit precise, as you can see, but you can get it on that ledge just there, and it will stay there, and obviously people from down here cannot see you, so this one in Heaven still works. Now coming on over to A main, you can see you can still do it on this little ledge here. You do have to be pretty precise with this one, but it is still possible to do. You can still place it just there, and you still will have this one-way working for you just there. And again, for any post plant in any door like this, it seems to work pretty well. You still have your one-way just there as well. So overall, the fact that Omen can still do the one-ways in A and B main is a good sign, but they are a lot more tricky to do. You can't, like, placing them mid-round is going to be much harder. It's going to take probably some time and getting used to where exactly those spots are, you know, for people to really get used to it. So I think Omen has got worse on this map. He's definitely, you know, harder to use, I would say. But you still can make it work if you are willing, you know, to put in the time. The ledges are there for you to still put down those one-ways. And so no, Riot has not killed Omen. If anything, they just made him, you know, more intuitive, and, you know, it kind of makes more sense with where these smokes stay and now don't. They don't just stick to walls for no reason. And so overall, I think it's a good change. And yeah, sure, it might be a bit harder to use Omen on certain maps now, but for the most part, he's still going to be about the same level he was before.